Thank you, everyone, for joining us this evening. This is our first event, as far as I know, certainly our first live event with Gabino Iglesias.
Yeah.
Right. Who has a very, very hot new novel, which Patrick, who is wild about it, is going to discuss with him. And he had a superb review in the New York Times Book Review, which I sent, or which I'm including in one of our newsletters. But congratulations.
Thank you.
That was pretty.
Appreciate it.
And Gabino has kind of a long story behind his current success, which he may or may not wish to share with you. But it has not been an easy path. So I admire him for his perseverance as well as his talent. Sitting next to me is Amina Akhtar, whom we met with #Fashion Week. I had the worst time with that. I'm sorry. I kept doing hashtag, it was just like, seriously? But the actual,
no more hashtags. No more.
The actual title of the book was #Fashion Victim. Anyway, and now she has a new book here called Kismet with a different publisher. But Amina is a New Yorker, or are you Brooklyn?
New Yorker.
New Yorker. I know it's different, so
It
I have
is
to be really
different.
careful. Right, a New Yorker who's transplanted herself to Sedona, which I find completely fascinating. And I have to say that reading her two books, and particularly Kismet, has introduced me to a Sedona, which I first encountered in 1950, when it was totally different than it is right now. Sedona was this kind of lovely, peaceful series of things on the outset of Oak Creek Canyon. And mostly it were old homes, old vacation homes, like, wooden with screen porches. There were no fancy restaurants. There were no luxury hotels. There were no Airbnb rentals.
And now there's nothing but Airbnb rentals. Like,
Which is
people
a
are
huge
moving
problem.
out of Sedona, and I live in the town over, so they're running into our town because you never know who's going to be next door, right? There's like party houses and stuff. So
Well, it's partly the party house thing, and then partly, unfortunately, because people have chosen to regard homes as an investment rather than a place to live. The same dynamic that happened a long time ago in Aspen and in Santa Fe and in, what is the name of that?
Telluride and places like that.
Yeah, Telluride.
yeah,
I'm trying
Vail.
to think of the other one that starts with a C in Colorado. Crested Butte. What's happened is that people who work there can't afford to live there. And it's a terrible thing. But I will say, before we start this, I was really pleased to see that Crested Butte, during the pandemic, all kinds of fancy places went broke. Crested Butte, the town, bought them up and are turning them into affordable housing for people to live in Crested Butte, the ski people and everything. And I thought that was a really super civic move all the way around. So, Scottsdale has the same problem as Sedona. And there we are. Anyway, Patrick, I've talked enough. Take over.
No, well, I just wanted to say a hearty congratulations,
Thank you.
Gabino, to the publication of this book. Terrific book. And boy, there's so much to talk about. I don't know. I don't want to give away any spoilers, but what a tour de force.
Thank you.
And as Barbara was alluding, I understand that losing a job right when the pandemic was starting kind of helped spur on the writing of this book. Can you maybe talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, that was weird. That book was the last Hail Mary. I've been doing this thing for about 14 years, and I had maybe 40,000 words. It had taken me 2.5 years to write those 40,000 words. I was teaching high school full time, all 4 grades. 4 different classes. As a floater, I didn't have a room. One of those classes was Intro to Engineering, so I had to carry my materials from one class to the next. And I was teaching one MFA class at night at Southern New Hampshire University. And in the beginning of March, they said we don't know what's going to happen. It's going to get weird when we come back or not come back in August. So we're keeping the core intact, but all the electives we don't know what's going to happen. You don't have a contract. And I thought, all right, so I have between now and August to find another job. That was not the moment to try to find a job.
No.
Everybody was, in fact, losing their jobs. So I was on a very, very big train with a lot of people who were in the same situation. So between March and I think the beginning of July, my last official day as a high school teacher was June 1st, 2020. And I realized it wasn't happening. There was no jobs. And I said, well, I wake up and I don't have to go anywhere. In fact, I can't go anywhere. Everything's closed. So I'm gonna close the windows, get it really nice and dark, listen to what my friends call my suicide music, and take all this fear and anger and all the other stuff. So between the end of, the beginning of July and the end of October, I wrote another 65,000 words, which was unheard of for me, because it almost made me feel like I was, productive. And found an agent with the book, and then very early in 2021, we sold it.
Wow.
So, and here we are, doing
yeah.
a tour.
And there's a lot of, there's a critique about the, the inequities of the health
Right.
care system in America, and there's so many things going on in the book. And didn't you find yourself also without health insurance? Wondering.
Yes, of course.
right when COVID was
Right.
starting.
I
It
moved
must have been
to.
terrifying.
It was scary.
Yeah.
Especially because there was a period of about a month and a half where every big news venue wanted to cover the story about the woman or the man or the non-binary folk who got COVID and now had $400,000 of medical
Right.
bills.
Right.
So I was not protesting the whole stay-at-home thing. I was like, I don't even want to catch pink eye at this point. Can't afford it. So it made me think back. I moved to Austin from Puerto Rico in 2008, and my first job was for about 4.5 years at the University of Texas at Austin, and we had great insurance. Not great pay, but as a TA, we did have good insurance. After that ended, high school teaching was the one gig that had health insurance, and prior to that, I worked the phones at a life insurance company as a bilingual policy owner services agent, and there's a little bit of that in the book because I hated it. It sucked my soul out. So shout out to all of you working insurance. I feel your pain. Those were the 3 times that I had health insurance. The rest of the time, I was teaching ESL classes. I was working as a freelance journalist. So between 2008 and 2020, I might have had health insurance probably a total of 6 years, maybe. And I wasn't really suffering because I didn't need insulin. I was not taking any meds that I needed daily. And that made me think about all the other folks who might be suffering from things that they can take care of with a pill.
Yep.
Or they can go to therapy and feel better and not live in a deep, dark, awful hole the rest of their lives. And they can't afford it. And we call ourselves an advanced country.
Right.
And we don't have that. We have people suffering and dying from things that could easily be taken care of if we had a better healthcare system. So all of that,
Fueled the book.
fueled. I would scream outside in the street, but my neighbors would call the cops, and that wasn't nice. So I decided to do all the critiquing and the punching racists and all those inside the book.
Well, it's funny. I don't know if you want to switch back and forth, Barbara, but there's reading it through. There's a lot of, as readers, we always bring ourselves to the text,
Right.
And so there might be some of me misreading what you were doing, but there's a lot of mythic stuff in this book as I see it. It is I think I wrote, it's kind of a fucked up quest novel in a lot of ways. There's a noir novel, and there's definitely a noir component, but it is a quest novel. And, you get this interesting unholy trinity of these 3 major characters. Can you maybe talk about the 3 players, Mario, Brian, and Juanca? I love the name, Juan Carlos, right?
Mario was, I think at the beginning, it was a character that I wanted to use to talk about, racism and being a little bit desperate and pain and grief. And I gave him that insurance job to sort of get that out of my soul and onto the page so others could carry it for me. And he needed a friend, and I don't like one-dimensional characters. So to find the one bad guy who comes to the rescue, that's how Brian was born. It was the one character who might be trying to become a better man because
Kind
he
of
has
hapless
a son.
tweaker guy.
Right,
It's hard
hapless
not to
tweaker.
like this guy. I
Yeah.
must admit.
And he has a
Kinda
baby
liked him.
coming, and
Yeah.
he's also looking for that one big gig.
Can't find his ass with both hands, kind of a guy.
Yeah, I mean, meth does certain things to your
Yes.
IQ.
If that's all true, how is he having a baby, Patrick? I wouldn't have thought he could.
I've met a lot of.
He wasn't shooting
Yeah.
blanks, right?
Yeah, there was a woman involved, so I'm sure she took care of everything, as women always do. And then Juanca was the assassin the assassin who, in a way, teaches them about that cosmic balance. He's sort of like, I need help because I already have enough bodies on my plate.
Right.
And you do this for money, but also to help me. And he had to be that he was the border kid. Mario was born in Puerto Rico, lived in Texas, and sort of inhabits that space between languages and cultures. But Juanca even more so. He was like the one kid who was born in Mexico, came undocumented to the U.S., and then sort of lived back and forth. And at the end of he's the worst, and he's also the one who wants to take care of mom. So,
Yeah.
So maybe, Amina, do you have questions or any comments you'd like to make?
Oh yeah, I mean,
Gabino's book?
there were a couple things that I really love, and I'm still reading the book. I'm a very slow reader. It's not on him, it's on me. I grew up in El Paso, so I spent a lot of time in Juarez growing up. And in the 90s in Juarez, you used to be able to, it was fine. You used to go over there, we'd eat mangoes, we'd go to the pharmacy, get the drugs we didn't want to pay for here. Yeah. And it was safe. And it's interesting to see what it's turned into and how it was represented in the book. And then I also really enjoyed that moment at that barbecue place in the middle of nowhere in Texas,
Right.
where, and I don't know if you guys have read it, where Wonka really takes out a couple of good old boys from Texas who were being racist. And I was reading it and I was like, oh, that felt good. It was a very cathartic moment. And then I realized, oh, that's why you were getting hate mail.
But
Yes.
that's one of the
Yes.
Yeah, it's hate mail now comes from 3 types of individuals. You're a racist because you punch a white man in the novel.
Yes.
And the 3 white men who are racists in the novel are all white. So I'm racist because I wrote 3 white characters who were racist. The second group of hate mail comes from ladies who, so this was, and I'm super happy about it. It was selected as a Book of the Month Club book, and I think that put it in front of the eyes of not my normal readers.
It'll be in for a surprise.
Yes.
I always feel like that's a double-edged sword because yes, you can get new readers,
Right.
but a lot of these readers don't want to read these kinds of books.
No.
At times,
And
yeah.
then they ask me if I'm okay, or older readers suggest that I need Jesus in my life. And the third group is just, how dare I put Spanish in a book?
Well, Jesus is in here.
Jesus is
Plenty.
in there, yes. Yeah, because usually the folks who tell me that I need Jesus come from a culture where they don't name their kids Jesus.
True.
So, yeah.
Jesus.
Exactly.
Social media is really an amazing thing.
It's a weird thing,
I
yes.
mean, it's let loose all kinds of, groups and special interest groups and anger and all the rest of it that never used to plague, certainly not publishing. I mean, if you had to actually write a letter and sign your name and put a stamp on it, most people didn't,
Right.
Sue Grafton, up till the end of her life, would only reply to fan mail that arrived the old-fashioned way.
Yeah.
She wasn't prepared to deal with all this stuff.
That's actually smart.
Very smart.
I might
Too,
start
but,
doing that.
It's really fascinating that a book would provoke those reactions. And if I may say so, Texas was probably a tough place for this book to be, there's
Yes.
a lot of very odd reactions going on in Texas.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm actually surprised that, it was allowed to be sold in Texas.
It's Austin, though.
Well, that's true.
It is. And in a way, if they want to ban it, go for it, because then it'll go
Right.
viral. So,
Yeah. Getting your book banned will get you on the
Right.
bestsellers list. So
Both
go for it.
both of these, written by people of color. They have there's a trans character in here. Oh my God! Please, you need to ban it.
That's a good career move, though. Actually, that always
I timed it right.
that always backfires.
Yeah.
Yeah, like Art
It's really
Spiegelman.
fascinating.
Exactly.
Book Week is coming up the second, I think it's September 15th or somewhere right in there. And if you actually go back and look at books that have been banned over the last couple hundred years, you'd be absolutely amazed at some of the titles. I mean, there's sort of obvious stuff like Lady Chatterley's Lover at his time or something. But come on, Where the Wild, Maurice Sendak, Where the Wild Things Are. Who would have guessed? I know it. I'm always, I keep hoping we're not going to achieve the sort of Munich book burning night, that we got. But if I look at 2 or 3 of our states, I do begin to wonder if there's not going to be some kind of ceremonial burning out there,
Right.
in front of the Capitol, whatever. So, well, see, this is a very strange time.
It is.
Yeah.
Strange time to publish a book. My hope is that most people are going to be so tired of all of this extremism, because this is how it was during McCarthy when I was very young. And eventually people say that's enough, and they just want to get back to normal lives and not have to deal with all this. And I'm sort of hoping that we're working our way towards exhaustion.
Yeah.
And, and we'll go there. But I say that because there was no social media in 1950,
Right.
and I don't know if it can keep things alive. Right. So let's talk about Sedona, because
Okay.
Sedona has turned into such an interesting place, and the wellness industry fascinates me. It's very strong in Scottsdale. It's not just Sedona.
Yeah, I mean, wellness is, a $billion industry. And I
yes.
thought, well, it's good to make fun of things. Coming from the fashion world, it's wellness adjacent. So, like, we always had to meet with people who were doing cleanses and this is good for your aura and whatever. So, a lot of what I drew on wasn't actually Sedona specific. It was just wellness in general.
Right.
I just thought Sedona would be a great place to bury some bodies, because that's what I think when I see a nice
Yeah,
view.
but Sedona, I mean, it's full of ley lines and people who come there to,
And vortexes
Yeah,
and healers. But every if you go to Sedona, I don't know if all of you have been, like every strip mall and every corner has like your crystal shops, your healers, and this and that. And so anytime you go into a cafe or get coffee, everyone's a psychic in there, and you're like, well, I'm sure there must be, I'm not anti any of that, but that's a lot of people, like all in one spot. And I thought, well, and it's also one of those weird places because it's very conservative up there. I'm in the town over, and like there are huge MAGA flags everywhere, right? So like, and I mean people walking around armed to their teeth at Walmart, and you're like, okay, I don't understand this behavior, but fine. So it's such a weird mix of wellness and healing and conservatism. And it's like
Goop and guns.
goop and guns. That's basically it. Yes.
Okay. Well, I mean,
Where were you when I needed a blurb?
That's a good one. Yeah, it's inspired.
I know. That was a great one.
dynamite. I mean, but basically, it was a small rural community in Arizona that has all of a sudden had all kinds of transplants dropped on it, and they don't blend well.
No, like
And
you
I'm not
literally can't
surprised.
drive even a mile in Sedona because there's just so many people just literally just milling about. The
Right.
traffic is insane. I don't even go in their town anymore because it's just you have to make a day of it, even if you want to go to one store because it takes so long. And my town, which is Cottonwood, and I'm on the outskirts of that, there's a huge explosion of people building out houses out there. So like the population has increased. Everyone who works in Sedona tends to live in Cottonwood or Cornville or around those areas. So it's been a huge population influx as well.
Right. Plus, you have this terrific wine industry, and with wine always comes cheese, right? So, so there's a big wine. I love the Verde Valley
The train?
Railroad, the
Yeah.
train. I just bought tickets actually to take a visiting author from Australia up the Verde Valley on the train, and that today actually the best way to see the Red Rocks is to
Yeah.
take the Verde Valley Railroad,
Yeah.
deal with the traffic. You
Yes.
get to go to a cool ghost town. You get to have,
Alcohol, you gotta have
yep,
a drink.
you can sit on the train without
Where do you
driving
pick that up, Barbara? The
in
train
Cottonwood.
in Cottonwood?
Yeah.
So just
How
come
far-
up to my house and
how
we'll
far
take you
does it
there.
go?
It'll be fine. Yeah,
no, in
I got you.
Cottonwood has actually a kind of really nice little B&B and other
Mhm.
stuff that's grown around.
Oh, in
And
the old Main Street.
New Mexico has some in Colorado. I really admire people who have taken these old mining trains and converted them. I mean, probably the most famous one is the Durango to Silverton one, but there's a great one that goes from Chama, New Mexico to Santa Antonita. And around that, just as in the days when there were passenger trains, stuff is growing up again, stations and restaurants and stores and all the rest of it. So, I still wonder why we've lost our railroad industry. We all fell in love with the car. America fell in love with the automobile, and
Yeah.
it's really a shame. But anyway, back to the wellness thing, because it's so beautiful, which is sort of where I was going in that roundabout way. I think it attracts, people thinking that if the place is so gorgeous, then maybe that will translate.
Yeah, just
helping
by
people.
being there, you're
Yep.
going to be well. You're going to be healed. You will be a new person. All the bad things you've ever done in your life will wash away just by being at the vortex, and that doesn't happen. Like for me, it was like let's go into why wellness can be dangerous. You have these people who will do anything. It's not about healing people. It's not about helping. It's about making money. It's about getting famous. So there's two main characters. There's Ronnie, who I call her Sad Ronnie. Sad Ronnie is this really beat down girl from Queens. Her aunt has just kept her under her thumb, and I got some hate mail from other Desies who were like, why are you showing her being mean? And I'm like, because our aunts are mean, guys. Like,
What community is that?
Pakistani.
Pakistan.
Yeah, we call it Desi, which is just a broader term for South Asia, because I feel like Indians and Pakistanis are we're all kind of mixed together. So I have, on one side, you've got Ronnie dealing with this aunt who's, really abusive and has her under her thumb and basically turns her into a servant, which does happen. And then she gloms onto this woman who wants to be the next Gwyneth Paltrow. And she convinces Ronnie to move to Sedona. And they do, and they stumble upon body parts in the desert. Because of course there's body parts in the desert. There's a lot of stuff in the
Body
desert.
parts like meat, as
I
we're all
know.
finding out. It's really interesting how as the waters are drying up, the stuff that is emerging from, there are going to be
Oh, yeah.
crimes that have been.
I'm waiting for Jimmy Hoffa's body to show up.
I think he's in concrete.
He
but,
probably is, but
yeah.
we'll find
But
him.
nonetheless, yeah. So I thought one of the most interesting things about your book, though, was that discussion of the aunt and how she regarded family property as her own, and how she treated her niece as basically a slave, a
Well,
domestic slave. She was.
I'm
living
trying to
in her
find the
niece's
the most diplomatic way of saying it is growing up, especially the first generation of kids who grew up with South Asian parents here. So there was a big influx in like the 60s and 70s where the visas has shifted, and they allowed a lot of people in with skills like doctors and what have you. So that's why a lot of doctors are Indian or Pakistani. They were considered, a model minority. And so a lot of us were the first generation of American kids of these people. And it was like a culture shock for a lot of us to be having, coming from a world where, our parents would always be like, kids are supposed to do everything we say. You can't even question, you can't even say why, which, you get in trouble, you get slapped, you're not allowed to do that. It's very cultural that the elder gets to tell you what to do and you have to do it, the end. You don't like it, too bad. This is life. So Ronnie's aunt, her parents are dead. Ronnie's aunt takes that to an extreme and has turned her into a servant. Literally there's a scene where she steps over Ronnie's like unconscious body on the ground. And she's just like, whatever, you spilled my tea. So I really kind of wanted to take all these things from my own family, but I mean, my parents are lovely. My dad's lovely, but like, but people I've met and take it to like an extreme because, I'm not a subtle person. And I also wanted to see like, what kind of person would go with a guru? Like what do you have to lose everything, I feel, to get to the point where you would look to somebody else and say, fix me. I'm coming for you. You're my new person, And so that was Sad Ronnie.
Basically, sad, abused Ronnie,
Yeah.
was a natural prey for this woman.
Yeah.
But I don't want to spoil the book, but I like the way the table shifts as we go through the book.
Yes. And then I also like that we have a raven on the wall, because the ravens, there's a whole point where I was walking on my driveway and a raven dropped a feather at my foot as I was thinking about this book and how to pull wildlife and nature into it. And I was like, huh, all right, well, I took that really literally. It was like, oh, let me put it in the book. So the ravens have their own chapters, and they're like a Greek chorus, and they're mad that they're losing their habitat and that the humans aren't taking care of things as well as they should, and they're getting in the way. And so they're creepy, creepy birds, and I love them.
Isn't there like a predatory aspect to this whole wellness community in some way?
Oh yeah.
You know, because my wife was just talking about this. She's like, there's so many mixed messages, you know, it's like accept yourself the way you are and all this kind of crap.
But buy
But
this.
shoot yourself up with all these drugs.
You are perfect the way you are. However, if you buy XYZ, you will be even better. And
Right.
that's the thing. It's like, you know,
Preys on the vulnerabilities and insecurities and stuff.
capitalism.
That's it. Yeah.
Capitalism in action.
Yeah.
That's for sure. And I'm coming back to it. I think, you know, that all these curated lives on Instagram and so forth make people feel even more insecure and feel like if they just, you know, do this, that maybe they too will. You know,
I think it's important for people to approach Instagram and TikTok and all that. It's a lot like when people finally realized magazines were photoshopped. Remember? And working at magazines, I was like, yeah, like this is news. It's not real. You know, this is real. Instagram, it's not real. You know, you can't compare yourself and your life to whatever beautiful, filtered, you know, photoshopped image that you're seeing from somebody online, because it's not the same thing.
well, that's true, but I think it also, unfortunately, it starts by preying on teenagers, and then it just carries on. You know, there've been a bunch of crime novels actually written to explore that about, you know, Instagram and the toxic effects. Now TikTok. Karen wrote to me today, one of our staff, and asked me how it was possible that Colleen Hoover had 5 books on the bestseller list, and you know, and she's asked people to explain why they read her, and none of them can give her a coherent answer. And I wrote to her, I said, it's the Gen X thing, Karen. You and I are way too old to understand what's happening here. But it is really, it's a TikTok phenomenon. And did you see the guy that fell off the Bright Angel Trail into the ground? I was just there. You know, Dana and I are walking the Bright Angel Trail, and ahead of us there were like 3 teenagers from Germany that were speaking in flip-flops that leapt up onto the rocks and then leapt back onto the trail where there's like this much clearance between the drop. And I'm going, these are kids. But this is a 44-year-old man who wanted to do a TikTok video and fell 200 feet to his death, you know, and you think.
People always fall into the Grand Canyon every year.
And there's an even higher death rate at the Grand Canyon because of TikTok. I'm convinced, because you have to do all this weird, you know, stuff to try to get attention.
This is why I don't go on TikTok.
So this is your next novel, right? Now
It'll be a comedy.
You can go after
I
TikTok.
would love a comedy.
Yeah.
I'm to do a comedy next. Something light.
So, Gabino, have you, by chance, any questions that you might like to ask Amina?
I mean, first of all, I love the book. I think that one of the most telling parts of the book, they're outside recording the video after the second murder. Like, we need to stick together. We need to protect each other. And then after the whole thing, you know, it's like, how are we going to do that? They're like, we're not.
It's all for
It's
show.
all for the show.
Yeah.
And I thought that's the point where the entire book opens up. Are you afraid that now the TikTokers are going to come for you? Because it's a very scathing, yeah.
No, I mean, I've had people get angry that I mentioned that the trails had garbage on them. The trails have literally been shut down for feces issues. Human feces. Like, literally has happened. It is in the papers.
Just like the streets of San Francisco.
Yeah,
Same
like,
problem.
it's anytime you have humans in the natural world going, it's gonna get dirty, you know. And so I had somebody get so angry at me for that. I was like, all right, that's fine. We go on different trails.
Aren't there enough porta potties out there?
I don't think there are.
I mean,
It depends which trails they go on. Like some of the really popular ones, people.
having just toured a number of national parks, I can tell you there are a lot more porta potties there than there used to be. And I think that's because the use has gone up and the national park system is adjusting
Yeah.
to the whole question. Wow. That doesn't sound like an attractive thing, though.
That's where the conversation went.
Yeah, we were talking about poop issues.
Right.
Mm,
Well,
we're classy.
right. All right, Patrick.
Oh, yeah.
Get the ball back.
Segue. All right. Yeah, God. Well, let's talk about, let's just talk about the basic setup for the book. And I don't want to give any spoilers away, but Mario, in the beginning of the book, he goes through this horrific loss.
Right.
Loss of their four-year-old
Yeah,
four-year-old daughter. And if that isn't bad enough, to add insult to injury, he owes hundreds of thousands of dollars, or a lot of money. And he's alienated his wife. And so this kind of sets up, he becomes a hitman, a mercenary kind of hitman. And then, let me see if I understand this correctly, where the big part of the plot comes into play and where Wonka comes into the picture is they want to take advantage of instability in the cartel that's going on right now. And you got the Sinaloa cartel and then the Juarez cartel. And tell us what the basic setup is. 200 grand for each of them. And
it's about $2 million going back to Mexico, because you always hear the critiques about, the Mexicans are so violent and the Mexicans bring in the drugs. First of all, Mexican cartels can't buy guns. There's one place in Mexico to buy guns, and the government controls it. So every single one of those guns they use down there, American citizens buy them.
The
and
Iron
then they
River.
sell them, right? Exactly, sell them for a profit. And the reason why the cartels have so much money is because everything they produce and bring over, we smoke, shoot, snort, whatever. So we're the consumers keeping the whole thing going. So sometimes those, I spent about 2 weeks learning how to liquefy meth. In case the whole book thing didn't work out. So please buy it. I want to liquefy meth. The trucks come in with liquefied meth, and then the money goes back.
by the way, there's a liquefied meth in the gas tank.
In the gas tank,
with a little bit of gas on top.
It doesn't mix.
It doesn't mix. Wow.
Wow, the gas floats on top of the liquefied
On top
meth?
of the liquefied meth. So if you happen to open the tank and look inside, you see the gas, and if you smell, what you smell is the gas. So only one of some trucks have 2 very big tanks. One of them has enough gas to get where they're going, and the other one is actually not really plugged because it's mostly meth.
Don't try this at home, kids.
Don't liquefy meth at home. Don't do anything at home. Let the professionals handle it. Wow, this turned into like a PBS show. Let professionals handle your meth. No, horrible drug. Don't do that. So the money, they come in here, do their drop, and then the money goes back. But as you know, the border is a very weird, violent place for them. So they want to take advantage of that. They know exactly where they're going to go through, and they think we can put sort of like a little trap together.
Wonka has
And
kind of the
then,
intel
right,
about all this.
All the intel, because he used to drive those trucks back and forth, and we can take that money and pocket $200,000 each, which
And
is
so, and so it's the classic, the classic noir thing. If I can just do this last
one more
score,
gig.
everything will be
product.
great.
Yeah.
Everything will come back together. It doesn't exactly.
Does the noir always spiral down, Patrick? Is it always going to do that? Is there ever a happy ending in a noir?
I've never seen one. I've never written one, but
Paco Taibo has that great
yeah.
book called No Happy Ending.
yes.
So I think I don't think there's a happy noir.
No.
I mean, I thought the whole point was you start at what
There's
looks
some
like
good-
a decent place for the hero, and then
Right,
it's
spiral.
all, or the heroine is all downhill.
It's usually one really dumb decision.
Followed by
you
many
watch
others.
You watch it go down. But I wanted to ask you, I got all these ramshackle notes, but there's this idea of the American dream
Right.
that kind of comes up repeatedly in the book. And what does it mean? And I remember both of our friend Joe Lansdale, he's like, I believe in the American dream. I just don't think it's available to everyone, which is a good comment. Anything to say about that sort of thing?
But first, I said Joe is a national treasure.
Absolutely.
I love Joe. I think there's the idea of the American dream, and then there's what's available, right? So in 2008, when I moved here, it was, get another degree that leads to a better job, upward social mobility, and then you realize that every single person that comes to the U.S. has some sort of idea of what might happen, and then along the way you discover, well, all right, so in my case it was like, I want to do this but I don't have the money to do it, so obviously I'm going to take out student loans,
Right.
which is the best way for me to achieve this thing that I can't afford on my own. And now, as an older person, I'm like, that might have not been the best idea ever. And I think everyone goes through that process. It's like, I know there's the beautiful home with the white picket fence and the 2.5 children and the little puppy running, the golden retriever running in the backyard. What is it that I have to do to get there? And then as you fight to get there, it's like, well, you don't have a right to this thing because you're a woman. You can't have this because you're Jewish. You're black, you're brown, you're Asian. So you start like, oh, all right. So it's like you start adapting to a slightly different version of that American dream. It's like, yeah, we're all for freedom, except when the Supreme Court gets involved, there's no freedom. Screw the Supreme Court while we're at it. You end up with this slightly tweaked or very tweaked version of that American dream. So the one that we've been sold by sometimes our parents or TV or literature, it's a dream. The real one's kind of like shorter, uglier, walks with a limp, and it still runs faster than you. So you have to hustle to get it.
Isn't that what Amina's writing about in the same way, really, in Kismet?
Yeah.
It's the same story. It's just different players in a different location.
Yeah, pretty much.
Interesting.
Except we don't have a lot of math. I mentioned math because my town has a lot of math.
It's so 2017, Amina. They're on to fentanyl now.
There is there's fentanyl, but there is also still a lot of math in Cottonwood. God bless. And
But it is a crystal.
That's true. Ooh,
Fair point.
there's a plot.
fair point.
Yeah.
Will it heal you? No, maybe not. Maybe not. I don't think crystals heal anyways, but it's not for me to say.
That's a dream too, because if you really are ill or mentally ill or physically, whatever it is, maybe you will grab at anything.
Well, it's
that
sort
has
of like
that kind
getting,
of a promise.
it's wanting an easy solution. It's, buy this, you're going to be healed. Take this course, you'll be healed. When real healing is going to come from, going to therapy, or going to a doctor, or doing what you have to do. It's not going to be a rock that you bought that some child, in Afghanistan had to mine and pull out,
I
And I think that there's a lot that the wellness industry doesn't examine. Like, I was writing this, I was reading how, sage has, everyone uses sage, everyone burns sage. I do it, I'm guilty of it. It's becoming endangered. So the people the indigenous folks who actually have it as a right in their spiritual rights can't get it. And it's like, well, what is the impact of how much we are buying all this stuff? What is the environmental impact? What's impacting other cultures? Because a lot of wellness is about stealing from other cultures and not acknowledging or holding them up. So I wanted to really just kind of dive into that.
My point was, what if you really did have terminal cancer and there wasn't any medical,
Well,
then I can understand why you would. There was a post by an author whose name I won't reveal, who's revealed that she has ovarian cancer. And her post was she started on the last stage of her journey using essential oils and so forth. And I thought, if that's where you are,
if it makes you happy,
if you think
that
it could
counts.
help or whatever, then that's okay.
I think there is a point where, like, if you're buying something that makes you happy and that impacts your wellness, great. Do it. If it's a shiny rock, great. Look, I like shiny rocks. I like diamonds, whatever. It makes me happy. But am I going to get any sense of healing from a rock? No. but is looking at it going to cheer me up? Is it going to make me smile? Is it going to make my day a little better? Sure. And I think that has a huge impact on a lot of things that we do. I think that when my mom she passed from cancer, and she was at a point where she wanted to start being more religious about stuff. And it was like, you know what, if that makes things more comfortable and it makes you feel better and it helps you deal with the situation that you're in, then do it. Only you can decide what it is. So I think it just really depends.
There's some cool insights I wrote down in Gabino's book that really track with what you're saying. And one of them is, when he goes through this grief, he finds out your life is precious to you, but disposable to others.
I loved that line.
Which I wrote that down. Great line.
I think I took a picture of it. Not gonna lie. Although I do feel, can we talk about the bolt cutters?
We can talk about the bolt cutters.
That was a lot.
It was like a couple pages.
El Milagrito.
Yeah.
Right.
Where did that come from?
Exactly. I was going to ask.
I've always had I think when you move away from home, which is something that you probably see because for you this is home, but also not.
Yeah.
And everything that you soaked in as a child was not from here. Then the realities of where you grew up start kicking in, and the lens sort of changes. So Puerto Rico, just like Cuba and the Dominican Republic, is sort of the epicenter of syncretism in the world. So you grow up and it's like you have your Christians and your Catholics and your Jews, and then your Santeria folks and your voodoo folks, and everyone's right. All right, whatever you're into.
Yeah.
Just like the crystals. Hey,
Go for it.
I don't go to therapy.
Yeah.
I go to the bookstore.
Yeah.
So in this case, it was back in 2015. I started trying to see what I could do with my obsession with religion, because it's this really weird spectrum where on one side of that spectrum you have people, it's like love thy neighbor, right? Like don't kill animals. And then you go like, that's awesome. And then you keep paying attention. It's like, let's pray away the gay. And you go like, wait, no, hold on. Where did you get that?
Yeah.
That's not how it works. So there's the excuse of religion to do really awful, despicable things. And when people want a little miracle, it's like, what do I have to do? I have to burn some Palo Santo. It's like, or I'll have to do my 3 prayers every day. Or in the case of my mom, she would do things like, I won't cut my hair because I have a promise. Or my grandma would have her bathroom in the hallway was for the spirit, right? And that's where the candles were, and you weren't supposed to use that bathroom. And with this novel, I wanted to explore, like, where do we go once we need that holy protection, and how can I use religion to show that even more than I've shown it in my previous 2 books. And then the idea of the Milagrito came to me. It's like he's a holy child touched by God. And if you say that of some robes, like I'm going to sell tiny little threads of a robe that Jesus once wore, but what if it came from like a child? Like, are you willing to chop off a kid? And who's willing to pay? And guess what? People are willing to pay. Yeah. And then people wrote to me saying, you're sick and you need Jesus. So yeah, that was fun.
Should have sent them a little fake toe back.
And again, look, I mean, people use rabbit's foot, or they did in an earlier era.
Yeah.
I mean, is that really that different?
One of the, I was very lucky. We sent out the book to 7 publishers, and we got 7 offers. And then we went to auction, and we had meetings with all the different editors. And I remember talking to Josh, which, we ended up going with Mulholland. And at the end of the conversation, I said, so like if we work together, do you have any ideas for that one scene? Because I know you don't want to cut it. Could we use it in marketing? And then he sat back and he said, listen, we can, at the readings, we can get you and you can throw out jelly beans. And I think at the end of the day,
Josh said that?
yeah, Josh said
That's
that.
twisted.
He wanted me to throw out like flesh-colored jelly
Oh,
beans. And I think at that point I said, I need to work with this man.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
He shares your twisted vision.
Yes.
Look, that's
He took
important.
it. He took it further. He was like, not a toe. We're gonna get you a lot of toes.
Yeah.
Judge a long time. So, Patrick, this is a revelation.
Yeah. The nicest, most mellow guy in the world wants to throw out toes. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Wow, math, toes, poop. This has been quite a ride.
Can't take us anywhere.
Let's talk about Spanish. There's a lot of Spanish in the book.
Yes.
And I was-
Translated too. Thank you.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you know, and a lot of time it's sort of like spoon-fed to the, you know, Anglo reader.
Right.
You know,
Anyone with a phone can use Google Translation if they
They
can't
can.
work it out. So
Yes.
I don't, you know, that old necessity of translating a foreign language in the text, I think to some degree is,
or italicizing it.
yeah,
Yeah.
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 The not using italics was something I decided back in 2015, and I said to my editor back then, if we're going to use italics, put the English in italics because that's not my
That's the
native
foreign
tongue.
language,
That's
right?
the foreign language to me, and I've been doing that for a couple of years. And then when it came to this one, I was like, are we okay with that? We're not changing that. And I do put a lot of work into trying to build a narrative in which readers can get what's happening. They can get the gist of it, without having to go to their phones because maybe they don't want to stop reading. For Book of the Month, I worked on a translation guide that they wanted to do. So folks get the book and then they get a little translation guide. But it's the year 2022 and this is the United States of
Yeah.
America. Learn some Spanish. It's about time.
Yeah, there's a great scene where the tweaker character we talked about earlier, Brian, you know, Wonka and Mario are talking in Spanish, and he feels left out because he
Right.
can't. And you make the point. It says not all white people have the same level of privilege, but they all share an aversion to being forced to step momentarily into otherness.
Yeah.
What a great way of putting it.
Well, yes, he's poor and he's a meth addict, but he's also white and male and straight. So in his own little way,
He's
he
got
has
that going for him.
He's got that going for him, especially when walking around with Juanca, who's a very dark brown guy with a tattooed face. So yeah,
And so Steph, Brian's girlfriend, they're not married, I don't think. She's pregnant.
Yeah.
And that's a really, it may seem like a minor detail, but that's a really major part of the book.
it is. It is.
Am I getting into spoiler territory?
No, not at all.
Okay.
I think you have a certain vision of life, and then if you happen to have a kid, then you realize how wrong you were about so many things. And your entire goals in life tend to not necessarily change, but they shift. Because it's like, now I have to take care of this one thing. Who did not ask me to be here? So now
worm.
I'm responsible for this little worm. And I think, you know, he had a fun life. He was a dealer. He made, you know, he had fun parties at the house, and now he's kind of panicking about I can't keep doing this because
Yeah.
I can't bring a kid into a meth house.
In the tunnels, they go down into the tunnels, and it really did feel like a trip into the underworld.
Yeah.
And I talk about the mythic kind of thing and some of the things they see down there. And I won't give you any more spoilers, but very cool.
Thank you.
So do we have questions from the audience? Any of you like to, do you have any on your phone, Patrick?
Oh, shoot.
You've got a wider audience.
I forgot.
You know,
Did either of you guys read the book after it's been published? Or
Like, you mean read our own books? Oh yeah, no.
No.
Because I will. So I don't think people know that. Like, a lot of times when you're doing edits, it's like they give you 5 weeks to rewrite a whole book, and it's very fast. So there's always going to be errors that you're going to find, and I can't handle looking at it and knowing that I could have made it better if I'd had a little more time, or I could have done this, because it never turns off. Like, I always want to make it better. Like, and I've never listened to the audiobooks. Can't do it. Absolutely cannot. I've heard it's fun. I've heard there's extra voices on it. I don't know. I just don't want anything to do with listening or reading or any of it.
Only your book on audio or
I don't do them at all, but I very vehemently will not listen to mine. And like I have like they send you stacks of CDs, and first of all, I don't have a CD player, so I have stacks of my books on audio, and I'm like, I don't know what to do with this. I'm not going to listen. Thanks. Yeah. No.
Did you read yours after it's published? Or
No, I'm tired of it. Yeah. No, I met Michael Farris-Smith, outstanding novelist. I met him in Oxford
Yep.
in 2019. And then he said to me, I said, what are you reading right now? And he said, I'm reading my own novel. And I was like, that's kind of weird. And he said, well, no, actually, because we sold it 5 years ago. And now it's coming out, so I have to do interviews.
Yeah.
And I've written like 6 novels since then. So
Yeah, it is
I don't
really
know
hard
what
to
it's about.
remember. Yeah.
But this one was rather quick. I just finished the next one. But in the editing process, you read and then you read again and then you read again and then you send it out and they go like, you idiot, look at all the stuff you missed. And so you go back in with the PDF proofs and you read it again. And then you go out in public and you do readings and you read chunks from a chapter. And
then you never want to read your own work ever again.
right, it's not for me. It's for y'all. Yeah, I'm done with it. Let somebody else read it. I'm gonna read hers.
I'm reading his.
So I'm a book reviewer for a lot of places, and I never fell in love with them because the voice, which is so important to me in a book, someone would give it to me, and sometimes I wouldn't like it. I was like, this character doesn't sound like that, and I would turn it off and go read the book. And I think those first couple of tries didn't work out for me, and I was like, no. So I stick to text because then I can see them when I close my eyes. Which is another reason why I don't watch movies before I read a book. and I know what they sound like in my head, which is not what they're going to sound like in the audiobook. So I stay away.
Here's a question from Julie. She'd like to know, do you read your reviews? How do you stay positive if the review is not great?
So I read reviews the first 3 days, 4 days. Because I was curious, and then obviously I'm a professional, so I reminded myself that reviews are for other readers, not for me.
But it's when they tag you in the review, so you see them.
Yes. and also because I had this idea where I really think for thrillers, dark fiction, speculative fiction, horror, 1-star reviews sell books. So I really wanted those. This is if you go to Amazon, please read the 1-star reviews first, because they will say things like, superbly written, it is the most violent, horrific book I've ever read. And I'm like, I'm a horror writer. It's the most horrific book you've ever read. I did my job outstandingly well. So I think the folks for whom this book was written will go to those 1-star reviews and they will be like, oh, all right. That one scene, folks are like, that one scene, this writer is possessed by the devil, and they're like, bye.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then after that, I
Or
stopped.
you'll see like 1-star, book did not arrive in timely fashion.
Right.
You know, there's a lot of that.
Yeah,
kind
it
of thing.
rained on a Tuesday when
Yeah.
I was reading
Oh,
it.
I had somebody complain, a British person complaining that my book was too American. And I was like, but I'm an American author writing about
Sedona.
American place. All right. So I don't read reviews. I try to avoid them. And then if people tag me in it, it's like, thanks for telling me what you didn't like. I appreciate that. I'll go back and change it right now. You know, it's like, no, the reviews are not for us. They're for other people to read. So.
I want to ask a non-spoilery question because most of what I have is spoilery. But you mentioned putting on your suicide music
Right.
to write this. What is that?
Yeah.
What's the music that helps you write this?
For this one, Robert Rich, William Basinski, Lost Mord, that type of like really dark drone sort of, cryo chamber.
Are these all musicians who have committed suicide? That'd be an interesting.
I have not read their bios, but I wouldn't be surprised.
You got Ian Curtis,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
all kinds of things.
So yeah, the really dark, moody, atmospheric black metal from time to time, and then you walk out of there with like a knife between your teeth, and you have to calm down a little bit. because you gotta go get groceries. Yeah, that type of stuff.
Not a good look at Safeway.
Not a
Do you
good
have a
look.
playlist for
But
the?
mine in Walmart.
I do not, but it'd be
Mulholland?
interesting to do one.
That'd be cool. Yeah.
What about for Kismet? Then? Did you listen to like,
No, I
soundscapes the whole time?
can't. No,
Chimes.
I'm like quiet. I'm one of those people who wants absolute quiet when I'm writing. I wish I could do music, and it doesn't work for me. I mean, I love music, but I don't, listen to what I'm writing. No, for me, it's like I like quiet so that I can hear the characters' voices in my head. And once I can hear them talking, that's when it's like, oh, okay, yeah, this is who it is, and that's how I write.
Anyway.
Do you have any control over the covers, or are those?
Not at all. All of my previous books were with indie presses, and that's a very different process where you suggest ideas, and they send you sort of drafts over the cover, and you're like, I don't want my name to be that big. I would like a little bit more blood on the cover. And with this one, and I'm guessing, let me turn to the old pro, the young pro, I should say.
I had a different cover for this. There was
Oh.
there was a different cover that was a raven in like weird colors. It was cool, but somebody pointed out to them at Amazon that they were kind of holding the book back, and they needed to make it a larger, like, show what the story's actually about. So then they came up with this cover, and at first I was like, oh, I had absolutely no say in it. They were like, we're changing the cover at the end, take it or leave it.
Publishers get to decide the covers and the titles.
Mhm.
They
They decide a
own
lot.
everything but the content. They have copyright for the text in the book, both of them. The publisher owns the copyright for the design of the book, the typeface, the cover, and all the rest. And their marketing departments, usually their sales departments, have big conferences about titles. And actually, it's a tribute to you that your title's that long, because very few titles actually are longer than 3 or 4 words.
Hence the one word.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, it's a great title for your book, but it's a little surprising. But some of the, particularly in the genre that you write in, tend to run to longer titles.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's my longest title ever.
But I think many of you think that the authors have more control over
No,
the
it's good.
finished book than
It's
they
just the
actually
first
do.
time I've seen cool covers
Yeah.
that seem to relate. Because like Larry Brown has a book called Rabbit Factory, which I think is a brilliant book, and it's a terrible cover. And there's terrible books, I think, and really cool covers.
Yeah. Well, there are focus groups involved and all kinds of things.
It's
and,
marketing and
yeah.
sales and
And then they change them too. I mean, if you were to go back and look at generations of, let's say, Agatha Christie, because we know there are generations of covers, change dramatically over time according to the shifting tastes of readers, and and it can be sort of tricky, because occasionally people buy a book and they don't recognize that they've already owned it, because it's got a different package. So that happens as well. And sometimes the hardcover book, if it goes into paperback, the paperback cover will be completely different than the hardcover, because they're looking at a different audience.
yours has different cover, doesn't it? The paperback.
We don't have a paperback yet, but the UK
UK.
cover
okay.
is completely different. And,
Right.
Yeah.
And that's true
Yeah.
too. And different countries have different covers. So, it's there are no rights and wrongs out there, for covers. And
Right.
but titles are really interesting. Sometimes you will see a list where somebody's gone back in and taken like 100 classic books and then researched what they were originally called. And, it can be really quite surprising to see, because we're so used to them and they've become iconic in the title. And we think, surely there was never any other, no debate about this. But sometimes there really has been fascinating stuff.
I love that. Have you guys seen that Far Side cartoon where it shows Herman Melville at his desk,
Oh,
and
yeah.
he's like, he's writing "Call me Ish," and you see all these crumpled up pieces of paper like "Call me Herman," "Call me,"
That's right.
Manfred.
That's a question that we often get them on our virtual programs, is asking authors where they come up with the names for their characters. And some of the answers are really surprising. What authors, how do you guys do it?
Some of them in Kismet are actual family. So to me, I was thinking about my mom's friend who had that name, and I'd been talking to her, so I had that name in my head. but I mentioned this daughter-in-law that Shamim has, and her name is Shida. Shida is actually this person that in Pakistan, having servants is standard, right? Everybody has a servant. It's not necessarily a class thing. You have to have servants. She was the servant of my aunt. And so I could always just hear somebody shrieking her name, you know, as like a core memory of mine. So I was like, I need to put Shida in the book. Like I have to pay tribute. But in my next book, I put my siblings in there with their permission. And then Star, who's in this, is actually my sister-in-law. And I got her permission too.
So you stay close to home.
I will literally I will go through social media and pick names. So if I follow you guys, you might end up in a book. Yeah.
What about you, Gabino?
It depends. Sometimes I have a hard time creating characters in a vacuum. So, for example, Juanca has this thing where he says, "You know what I'm saying," and you know, I think back and it's like, I have this friend who says that thing. So I will look for either their first name or if it's very common, their middle name, because you know Latinos we always have like a middle name,
Right.
and then you just use the word tribute. So like I'll plug something out of that. With Brian, I had a white guy, and I was like, it's not gonna be Mike or John, but it has to be like a regular white guy name. And one of my mentors, Brian Keene, superb horror author, I was like, I'll name him Brian.
I named a meth head
Yeah.
after you.
Because I love you. Maybe he dies. I don't know.
Yeah, we'll find out.
Did you have one more question, or are you just a
I'm
perky?
dying. No, I just would like to know, Gabino, who is your favorite cozy mystery author?
Cozy. Oh wow, I haven't read a cozy in ages.
I'm joking. I didn't.
No, hold on. I have an answer for this. Sean Cosby. Cozy Appalachian Noir. Yes. Yeah.
We probably ought to
Yeah.
end this on that note before we get to the better field. Thank you all very much for coming this evening. Thank you, remote audience, for joining us this evening. Patrick, you're going to go and turn off the Facebook?
Yeah, I can do that.
Probably a really good idea.
Hello. We hope you're enjoying our programs and podcasts with authors. We'd like to expand them, and your help would be appreciated. Please make a donation at poisonedpenfoundation.org. 100% of the proceeds will go to help connect authors with readers in this difficult time. Thank you.